Okay, welcome to today's webinar, Expectations versus Reality, Finding a New Lptv Channel and What to Do If You're Mx'd. I'm going to go over a little housekeeping first. We are recording the webinar. Please stay on mute. During the presentation, would you please use chat for any questions, or you can jot them down, and at the end of our presentation, we're going to have a significant amount of time for Q&A where you can unmute, you can talk to our presenters. Also, as it seems appropriate to sort of take a minute and take a break during the presentation, I may, I'll read out any questions that are in the chat, or our presenters may, notice there's questions in the chat. And so we'll make sure to get to everybody and get everything answered. The replay of the webinar and the slide deck will be sent out after the webinar. So if you have colleagues you'd like to share this with, you're more than welcome to. And also just want to say thank you. Thank you so much to Kevin and Kyle, our presenters, and to all of our attendees. If you'll give me just a second, apparently we have someone having a hard time getting in, and I need to find out how to let them in. Give me just a second here. Apologies. One more thing I need. I apologize for this. Julie, I got your message, and Jeff's already in. When I go to the people in the meeting, Jeff's already in. So if he's having issues, perhaps he should log out and try to log back in. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Again, I just want to thank our presenters and thank everyone for attending today. Let's introduce our panelists. First of all, we have, hold on. I have a few notes I've taken because I don't want to lose my place, and I've already lost my place. So let me start over. As most of you know, next Thursday, March 19th at 12:01 a.m. EDT, Class A, Lptv, and TV translator stations will be permitted to file on an ongoing basis and without restriction any minor or major change applications and any applications for new Lptv and TV translator stations. Today's webinar will get you ready for when the freeze lifts, as our experts will present an in-depth technical deep dive as we move from perfect world theories to real world solutions. We're also going to go spectrum sleuthing and provide tactical strategies to finding an Lptv station. And you'll learn how to use every tool in the engineering shed to get your station on the air. But first, let's meet our experts. I'm going to introduce Kevin Fisher. He is the president at Fisher and Smith, or I guess according to your logo, Smith and Fisher. Sorry. Kevin received his Bachelor of Science degree in 1979 and joined the consulting firm of Smith and Paustenko on November 9th, 1981 as an associate engineer. In 1995, he became a partner and the firm's name officially changed to Smith and Fisher. In 2009, the company incorporated and Kevin became president. Over the past 45 years, Kevin has helped countless number of broadcast clients, both large and small, achieve their engineering goals, and has filed for and received authorizations for thousands of radio and television station licenses including hundreds of Lptv stations, using forensic engineering techniques. I love that word forensic. I'm such a true crime fan. A little different today.
Yeah.
Using forensic engineering techniques, he has solved interference issues, increased station coverage, and discovered available spectrum for his clients. Since the 80s, Kevin has also conducted hundreds of power density studies in order to help stations, tower owners, and building owners comply with FCC and OSHA radio frequency radiation human exposure standards. Kevin's firm has been associated with the Empire State Building since 1972. He is currently under contract as the RF consultant for the Empire State Building and conducts routine and non-routine power density studies there. Kevin is a member of the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, better known as IEEE, and the International Committee on Electromagnetic Safety. These are words I don't think I've ever spoken in my life. My gosh. He has actively participated in various advisory committee projects for the FCC, and his qualifications as an expert in his field are a matter of record before the Federal Communications Commission.
Wow.
Our second panelist is Kyle Fisher, senior engineer at Smith and Fisher. And yes, he just might be related to Kevin.
But not brothers.
Father, son. Kyle holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Pennsylvania State University, as well as a Master's of Business Administration from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. In 2008, he joined Smith and Fisher, and he became a partner in 2015. During his tenure with the firm, he has participated directly in the preparation of numerous FCC filings and client reports involving all aspects of broadcast engineering. He has filed hundreds of Lptv and translator applications and modifications for companies such as Trinity Broadcasting Network, Inc., Fox, Hearst, Pappas, Bellow, Weigel Broadcasting, and HC2 Broadcasting. I always want to say H2C. I don't know why. HC2 Broadcasting, as well as FCC power density measurements for the Empire State Building in New York and multi-user sites in Minneapolis, Albuquerque, New Orleans, and California. Kevin is also a member of the IEEE. He is a member of their Standards Association, as well as their Engineering in Medicine and Biology Society Technical Committee. He is also a participating member of the International Committee on Electromagnetic Safety. Phew! And that wasn't even half of their qualifications.
Oh my God.
Folks, you're in amazing hands today. And with that, let's get to our webinar. And I am going to turn this over to Kevin.
Actually, Kyle's going to be the runner of PowerPoint.
I'm going to take it here.
Sorry, I'm turning it over to Kyle.
Can you see my screen, Amy?
We sure can. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Amy. Thanks to the Lptv Broadcast Association, and thanks for everybody today for joining the call here. What we kind of wanted to go over was, we'll get calls from prospective clients wanting new Lptv station in New York City, and we kind of have to temper expectations a bit. We always want to build the biggest, best stations without regard sometimes for operating costs. We're not Lptv station owners, so we don't really consider that too much. We we're excited by building the biggest stations that cover the most amount of people. So, the perfect world scenario to us is locating transmitting equipment in an antenna farm. People already have their their antenna is pointed in that direction, and that is going to be the easiest place for people to pick up new LPTV channels. One thing that we like to look at is incoming interference to everything that we are proposing. We want to find channels that have little to no incoming interference from co-channel and adjacent channel sources. I'm sure as everyone is aware on this call, UHF channels are the gold standard these days. They operate a little bit better than the VHF channels. So we always want to specify a UHF channel if we can find one. Omnidirectional antenna patterns are always what we aim for, because we want to serve surrounding communities also. We always like to try to maximize power and antenna heights on those towers to capture as much population as we can. One thing we've been pushing our clients to do is to consider elliptically polarized antennas to make it easier for people to pick up signals off air. And then, every LPTV station owner hopes for cheap rent on their towers. So, a client contacts us and says, oh, we want a new LPTV station in New York City. We want 15 kilowatt UHF. First off, we tell them, don't waste your money. Don't spend your money with us on that. We're not going to be able to find you that. But if they're bent on finding that, or bent on operating with that, this is how we would go about trying to do a search for a new LPTV in New York City. So this is a potential new LPTV station operating from Empire State Building. Guys are familiar with our work there, so we always like to push them as a broadcast partner. But we would operate from the broadcast tower, omnidirectional, 15 kilowatts UHF. As we know, that captures a whole lot of population. What does the reality of that look like? So we would start with our what we call spaghetti map. This is all of the channels that operate in and around New York City within 150 kilometers. So this is all inclusive of everything from channel 2 all the way up to channel 35. As you can see, it's covered. It's a mess. So, we would look at this and say, oof, man, it's going to be a tight one. Please don't spend your money with us. But if they wanted us to continue along with it, we'd move forward by trying to identify a single channel. So this is focused on channel 30 and looks at co-channel and first adjacent channels in and around New York City. These are the protected contours that exist in that market. So anytime we're putting Longley Rice predicted service into one of their protected contours, that's going to be an issue from an FCC compliance standpoint. So we look to see what population we want to cover, and is it protected by an existing protected contour? And that's, there would be some situations where, let's say out in New Jersey, if that's the primary population they're serving and they're only kind of serving New York City on the edges of that contour, maybe an opportunity exists for us to slot in somewhere there. It all depends on terrain and what things look like from that perspective. So what is the reality of finding a new LPTV in the market as it exists today? Well, there's limited opportunities in the top 50 markets, especially UHF. It's almost impossible to find anything worth operating in the top 50 markets in the UHF spectrum. If you're willing to consider VHF, specifically low VHF, there might be opportunities there. I think most of us are familiar with the challenges that are faced by man-made interference in the low VHF band, but it's an option. So, but UHF in the top 50 is unlikely these days. One issue that we've found in our field work is that sometimes the antenna farms are really far outside the city or the population zones, and it just doesn't do a great job of filling the population zones with usable signals. So, you always want to take a look. Contour is not the end all be all. Longley Rice really goes a long way in helping you determine what your actual coverage is in population centers. One thing you really want to take into account is incoming interference from the co-channel and adjacent channel stations in your market. Sometimes they can make a huge difference in what you think you're serving versus what you're actually serving with a usable signal that's able to be picked up. And it's difficult these days in the digital world to figure out, are you not being able to serve population because of lack of signal, or is it because of an interfering station nearby? It's hard to tell with the digital cliff effect. So, doing a study on that is an important thing. And most major markets these days are going to require the use of highly directional antennas for outgoing interference purposes. A lot of the panel antennas do a really great job of restricting energy to the rear of the antenna, and that can help greatly in putting in Lptvs in very tight markets. It allows for great protections on the backside to allow you to serve the populations that you want to serve on the front side. So like I said, UHF is preferred, but major markets may only have VHF, and top 30, not even in the HF band are you going to find much anything these days. Protections from land mobile are kind of the bane of Kevin and I's existence. You think you found a good usable channel, and then you're in TV study, and oops, you've crossed into a mobile land mobile protection that you didn't consider before. Kevin's dealt more on the international side than I have, but Mexico can present a huge challenge to any new Lptv stations. They can be somewhat difficult to work with, but likewise, Canada has to be a factor as well. We can't cause a whole lot of interference to Canada before they start raising concerns as well. So making sure your international stations are protected is a good practice for
Kyle,
new
can I interrupt
Lptv
for a
stations.
second on that?
Yeah, go for it.
On that note, yeah. TV study will not tell you anything about Canadian and Mexican interference. So unless you've got that capability yourself, your application goes into the FCC, and 9 months later you ask them, well, why haven't I gotten a construction permit? It looked like a clean channel, and they say, well, we've submitted to Canada. Canada is saying no, and we were about to send you a dismissal letter unless you can fix it in some way. So it's a bugaboo for sure. Mexico especially has peppered the border with tremendous number of allotments, not necessarily existing stations, but they have to be protected as well. So that's a challenge sometimes. Go ahead, Kyle.
And Mexico can be a little bit more opaque about what to do to fix the issues as well. So, our southern border is a little bit harder to navigate than our northern border, but it should always be a consideration when and TV study will tell you when you're within the boundaries of having to get Canadian or Mexico coordination. So, you should know ahead of time whether or not you have that concern or not.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we always aim for the highest height and the highest power, but sometimes that's just not how things shake out. There's a lot of tools at our disposal with changing heights and changing powers that can maximize coverage, but then minimize the interference to other stations. That's gonna get you a grant from the FCC.
And just real quick, guys, Craig Fox put into chat the TV study will let you check international. You have to check the box in the TV study.
Oh, well,
Okay, cool.
thank you,
Good to
Craig.
know.
Craig,
Thank
do you
you.
have any more you want to say on that?
Us or Craig?
Craig,
She said
I was
Craig.
going to say, Craig, do you have anything else you want to add to your chat? Okay, keep going.
All right.
No, that's
So,
good. Yeah.
searching through the LMS, there's some opportunities that exist. If you're apt to combing the LMS database, if monitoring the expiration dates on existing CPs can be a good strategy. If somebody's coming up on their deadline and they're not building out on that, the opportunity exists for somebody to jump on it if it expires. In LMS, and we use vSoft Pro 5 as well. The call signs will be prefixed with a D, as in deleted, and that's a good telltale sign that there might be an opportunity for a new Lptv station where one was left behind. You always want to check the unpurged and expired CPs and licenses in the FCC database. A lot of times it gets left in without any regard to, we take it out, putting a note in our applications to say, hey, you just need to ignore this and you'll get a grant because it's a deleted application or a canceled permit or what have you. And then being ready to file on a channel immediately once a construction permit expires is just a good practice.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin.
Wow. Well, good job, Kyle. I'm going to add a note to the major market situation. When I joined Smith & Pastenko back in 1981 or two, and I think it was 82 now, the FCC was about the time that they opened up the first low power TV and TV translator window. And of course, everybody and their mother and brother jumped on the bandwagon and filed applications, thousands of applications, including in major markets. Well, throughout the years since then, the 40 years plus, since then, other windows have opened. And of course, the first thing people want to look for is an open channel in a major market. And those essentially, that spectrum has been combed over so many times that it's very rare to find an available UHF channel in those markets. So just wanted to bring that up to everybody. So I'm going to start with adjacent channel interference because that's something that you can definitely play around with a little bit when you're doing your searching for a channel. When you find a channel where you do have an adjacent channel full power station, it's actually helpful to locate fairly inside that station's protected contour. Why? Because if you locate a site toward the edge of that contour, you're likely to cause actual or predicted interference to that station. The closer you are to their transmitter site, the higher their field level is going to be, and oftentimes you find that you cause the adjacent channel station no predicted interference. You can also optimize your operating parameters to kind of move where that adjacent channel interference occurs, again, on a predicted basis, in order to minimize it over your city of license. So picking the right site, picking the right antenna pattern, you have to kind of juggle interference versus coverage versus incoming interference in order to find the best solution when you're facing that. One thing that's come up fairly recently is situations where you've got two cities in a market that are separated by a significant distance. And you find, as in your channel searches for each of the two communities, that the same channel is available. Well, one option you might have, instead of trying to pick a point in between those two communities and doing a pretty crappy job, crappy's an engineering term, crappy job of serving each of those communities, maybe consider filing two separate applications on the same channel for those two communities, and then sort of operating those two stations as a DTS type facility where you're using things like signal delay to minimize interference or minimize where that interference, self-interference could actually occur. With regard to that, and with regard to any applications that you're filing in this upcoming window, be careful, because the FCC has issues when you file two applications that are that would ultimately be Mx'd with each other. But since you're the owner of both, or you're the applicant for both of those facilities, you in your own mind, you might say, well, of course we would have accepted interference between ourselves, but you actually need to state that somewhere so that the FCC doesn't throw you out and consider that you filed what would be considered contingent applications. In the past, the commission's made people choose one or the other application to pursue. So definitely consult legal as you do that, if you find that you filed two things that would ultimately be hooked up together. Moving on. Don't base your channel searches strictly on the distance to existing construction permits and licenses and applications. The actual coverage of any given station or authorization is determined by a bunch of other things like terrain, antenna pattern, power, antenna height, and incoming interference. And I'll show you something associated with that in a second. Always use Longley-Rice studies to verify the actual signal penetration of the station that you're trying to protect in the area you're trying to serve. And when it comes to utilizing TV study, try various cell sizes and increment spacings. The FCC won't allow you to go any larger than 1 kilometer in terms of cell size. Likewise, they will only let you go down to 0.05 kilometers as a minimum spacing. Kyle is somewhat of a wizard in, he's got the patience of whoever that guy was, I think it's Job, in trying a whole bunch of different combinations until he finds one that meets the interference rules. I tend to go with the tried and true combinations usually, and move to some other solution rather than go through the myriad of choices you have in terms of combinations. So the one other thing to keep to consider is that masking from other authorized stations is a great tool to use. Outgoing interference studies using things like probe, Vsofts probe, they don't always give you the entire picture. You have to look at each station and what kind of incoming interference they're getting, and seeing if that opens up some channel availability for you as you're conducting your channel searches. So here's a situation where there's a station in Denver. I won't say the name of it, although I guess you can see it on the map, where I believe they're operating from the antenna farm in Denver. And as you can see, when you run Longley-Rice, that station doesn't cover Boulder, Colorado. They're terrain limited. And so if everything else was good with an adjacent channel to this guy's station, this is a full power station, by the way, you might be able to put something into Boulder and serve that particular community. It's kind of accidental, but I found a station that actually does put a bit of a contour over Boulder. And this, I'm not saying that this is necessarily available. It's actually not. But this would be a situation where maybe you could design a facility to serve Boulder if it met all the other interference requirements to all the other stations. This is the same station, but you can see that it actually has problems serving the Denver area because of terrain shielding back toward Denver. And so, you know, if you were just going based on contour population, you'd be serving a population of 1.2 million. But once you take terrain loss into account, it goes down to 1 million. So you've lost a couple 100,000 people in the process. Then all of a sudden you run incoming interference, and oh my gosh, look at all the interference that's being received by this particular station. And you know, for this purpose, this would be a pretend allotment that I think could be dropped into Boulder. And the incoming interference is pretty bad all the way throughout. You'll notice that there isn't that much interference in Boulder itself. So you still might have a possibility of covering Boulder, but kind of have to forget somewhat about most of Denver. Then in the final analysis, taking into account incoming interference, terrain shielding, this is what the coverage of the station looks like based on Longley Rice. And we've gone from a contour population of 1.2 million down to about 400,000 people actually being able to receive a 51 dBu signal. So this is a good example of a situation where terrain makes a big difference. Incoming interference makes a big difference in terms of how much of an area you're actually going to cover. If this was my client, I would go back to them and say, look, if you had hopes of serving Denver with this particular channel in this community, I would consider maybe just trying to serve Boulder with it and turning an antenna pattern around if the interference situation would allow you to do, and just hammer Boulder with a great signal and be satisfied with that. Although usually people who want to serve Denver would not be satisfied in just serving Boulder, but be that as it may. So Kyle and I have sort of given you an idea of what we go through when we're looking for open channels in various markets. It's a very complex protocol that we use. We're successful a lot of the time, but we're also, we temper client expectations when they ask for something that either we have done channel searches for over the years and we know what the situation is, like New York City. If you go back to that very first slide that Kyle showed with the spaghetti map of New York City, the reality is there are no more channels to be had in New York City, not even low band VHF channels. I have not run a channel study in LA. I would imagine the same thing exists there. You can tell how packed a particular market is spectrum wise if it's got low power TV stations on the low band VHF channels 2 through 4, especially if there are licensed stations on those channels in that market. It's a good indicator that you're going to probably strike out if you're looking for available spectrum, unless perhaps a license has been canceled that on a particular channel that was serving the community. But in those particular cases, those licensees will tend to sell their station before they'll just turn in a license. So that's not just it's not going to happen very often. So I just want to spend a minute or two talking about MX situations, because in the December window where you can move up to 75 miles for an authorized or licensed Lptv station or Class A station, there were a good number of MX situations. MX basically meaning that the coverage and interference of two applicants overlapped, and there were a few dozen of those situations. The applicants were able to work out their solutions themselves, and it left about 5, from what I understand from Mark Colombo, 5 MX situations that are still ongoing, trying to fix, and or maybe if they can't be fixed, going to an auction down the road. With this window that's going to open up a week from Thursday, there are going to be a lot more applications filed, and very likely a lot of MX situations are going to result from that. And so what tools do we have in order to try to unhook your application? I'm going to mention that back in the 80s and 90s, when the commission opened up these windows where thousands of applications were filed, there were some daisy chain applications, multiple applications that spanned almost all the way across the United States and up and down the East Coast. And it was very challenging for me to try to look at my client's situation and try to unhook them from the entire chain. But the more you do, more people do that, the more that chain breaks up into smaller and smaller bits, where the FCC would be able to grant a lot of those applications and result in fewer stations having to go to auction. So what are some of those tools to unhook ourselves? Well, first of all, if you have the wherewithal to file for multiple channels in a given community, it gives you more playing cards at the poker table to do swaps and things like that with other people that you're hooked up with, especially if they're in the same community as you. You can also look for a new channel for yourself or for the other person. And if you happen to like whatever the alternate channel is, you could take it and tell the other person that you're basically going to file a change application to go for this new channel and unhook yourselves that way. You could reduce your effective radiated power or go to a different directional antenna pattern to try to eliminate the interference or the overlap between the two stations. That works typically when the two applications are far enough away from each other. An adjacent channel situation, everyone knows that we've got the use of mask filtering now, and it goes from simple to stringent to full service in terms of the capability of those filters to eliminate adjacent channel interference. And if you happen to file an application with a stringent filter and you're hooked up with somebody else who is adjacent channel to you, try running the interference study with a full service filter and amend your application to go to that filter if it basically unhooks you from that adjacent channel application. You can also look at possible site changes where you're co-locating with an adjacent channel station. That oftentimes will alleviate an MX situation with that other station. The one issue that I sometimes see, well, actually I see it pretty often, is when the two entities are using different antenna patterns and all of a sudden you're causing predicted interference even at their site because your antenna pattern doesn't overlay theirs exactly. So that's something to look at in a situation where you're looking to co-locate with an adjacent channel applicant. There are legal strategies that can be used, monetary settlements. This is something where I'm treading on shaky ground. Someone like Davina could expound on that more. I think the FCC allows you to be compensated for whatever you've put into monetarily an application, the filing fee, the engineering fee, the legal fee. Someone else could pay you to go away as long as your expenses were legitimized. You could look at a timeshare where one station operates, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the other station, the other user of that facility operates from 2 p.m. till midnight, let's say, or whatever. I mean, you could work out time sharing arrangements. And there's also channel sharing that could that arrangement could work as well, where you're sharing bits and basically allowing both stations to put their programming on the same facility. And then finally, if not, all those things require cooperation with with the station that you're MX'd with, in one way or another. But the sort of the win-lose situation is trying to find problems with the competing applicant's application. Perhaps they didn't actually get permission from the site owner to specify their tower in the application. You know, things like that, where essentially you're trying to get that application dismissed. Oftentimes that results in a big legal battle that may not be worth it from a cost standpoint, because now you're gonna pay your lawyer, you know, a good amount of money to try to unhook those applications. So Kyle, did you want to add anything that I've overlooked?
Nope, I think you covered it. I think we'll open it up for any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, yeah.
This is Craig Fox. I just wanted to say regarding the international checking with TV study, on the page where you build the interference check study,
Right.
there's boxes in the lower right quadrant. And the first one is include non-US records. So that will add these stations outside of the country as long as the databases are accurate.
Is it your understanding, Craig, that the FCC has terrain data all the way down into the heart of Mexico?
I don't know about Mexico, but certainly a good portion of the southern part of Canada. I don't deal with Mexico. I just really deal with Canada. So
You're lucky.
okay.
No, see, because one thing that Canada has actual, you know, rules to try to protect their stations. For instance, they'll only use a particular cell size and increment spacing. I think it's 1 and 1
Right.
to protect their stations. They won't allow you to use other combinations. That's the limit.
That's correct.
As long as your interference is occurring on the U.S. side of the station's contour from Canada, you're typically okay with that.
Or in the water.
Or in the water. So you've
Yeah.
got definition to the interference studies that you run with Canada. The one thing you should have if you're trying to do it yourself is Canadian terrain data and population data, you know, the most recent population data from Canada, so that you can
Right.
sort of mimic whatever the Canadian government is going to do in terms of looking at your application. And that's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Greg. That's something I was never aware of. With you taught me something. Send me a bill.
And of course, you know, if you do just the regular contour, there's the threshold of where you have to notify them, which is separate from the actual study.
Right. Right.
And that's different for VHF and UHF.
Yeah. But it's nice that they actually define it, because I've done applications where I show absolutely no interference to a Mexican facility. It's actually an allotment, and the Mexican government's come back and said, no, yeah, we don't buy it. And you know,
they've done that forever with everything.
Well, there's no engineering rhyme or reason, so now I'm not, you know, I've lost my tool belt basically.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I also have to say that, you know, here it is, the 10th of March. You know, if anybody doesn't have their engineer on board and their attorney on board for this filing frenzy that's going to happen next Thursday, it's a little late in the game, but you know, you should definitely be having that conversation with your engineer sooner rather than later. Agree, Kyle?
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Does anyone else have any questions? You are more than welcome to open your mic or turn your camera on and talk to our panelists.
Wow. We've explained the whole situation. Everyone's going to go out and find their own channels.
Yeah.
And after this, yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. Good.
Okay, in case anybody is shy, I will give them another minute. While folks are thinking if they have any final questions for you, I do want to promote next month's webinar, which is not a webinar. Lptv will be having our annual meeting held concurrently every year at NAB Las Vegas. We are confirmed for Sunday, April 19th from 9 to 3 p.m. I am currently working on our website and our registration, and that will be going out in this Friday's newsletter. It will be on our website, and you will hear nonstop from me about NAB between now and the 19th of April. We're going to have networking opportunities. There'll be a technical session, a 5G broadcasting session, a legal session, and then we are just absolutely thrilled. During our luncheon, we're going to have a special fireside chat moderated by Frank, our fearless leader, and our special guest is Evan Morris, the Deputy Bureau Chief from the Media Bureau of the FCC. So we have got some must-see TV live and in person in Las Vegas next month. And stay tuned for all of the sessions. We're almost confirmed on all of our speakers. We've shortened up the program a little bit this year simply because it seems like there's always a lot of after show evening activities, and so we know people need to go and get ready and go to all of your various dinners and networking events and all the things that Las Vegas has to offer us. So we're pretty excited. We're putting together just a really amazing annual meeting. And the other thing I should mention is it is free, not only for members, but for non-members. I know there are some of you on our call today. Thank you for joining us. When we host our annual meeting, we want everybody to be able to come and see what we do. And between these webinars, the annual meeting, and the work that we do at the FCC, we hope that you will find it valuable and consider membership with us. And I think that's all on that. So I'm just going to ask one more time, does anybody have any more questions? And if not, or you think of something later, I am going to be sending out Kevin and Kyle's contact information along with the replay link and the slide deck. So you are always welcome to reach out to them directly as well. Thank you. Kyle, Kevin, Kyle, thank you so very much for a really great webinar today.
Yeah.
Thank you to my attendees, and I hope I see you all in person in Vegas. Have
All
a
right.
wonderful day.
Thanks for having
Amy.
us, Amy.
Thanks.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Later.
Bye.